We are collecting some blazing star. That's Liatris species, probably dense blazing star. This is actually in front of our Park District headquarters, so you may have seen this stand. And Jules just working the tip and scraping the seed into a bag, or you can use a bucket. That works well too. And you can see when this stuff is ripe and it's nice and dry like this, it strips off really easy. So as a general rule, when the seed comes off easily, that's a good indication that it's ripe. Jules, you want to show them collecting some of this Rudbeckia seed here right next to it? So this is also ripe. This one can sometimes be tricky to collect, but it seems to be coming off pretty well right now. So you can see all that coming off. Let me get a little bit of this and see if we can see that in the video. So we're getting a lot of chaff and stuff too, but that's okay. We don't really care about that. But you can see some of those smaller black kernels. That is going to be the seed. You can separate these in distinct bags and make a custom seed mix if you want later. Or in this case, we're not overly concerned. Most of the seed will end up in the same place. So it's going in the same bag. But we're primarily focusing on collecting the blazing star today. Today we are collecting seeds from Compass plant, which is in the Silphium genus. And you can see those large leaves. If Travis grabs one of those leaves there for us, and it's deeply dissected. Compass plant, a fairly rare species in the state of Ohio. I believe it's actually considered a threatened species, but it is in a lot of the restoration prairie seed mixes. Very long-lived plant, may take several years before it blooms for the first time, but also a very tall yellow flowering plant. You can see that's probably 8 feet tall or so right there. A lot of those seed heads are still green, but Travis, if you want to show those that are browning there at the top, how those will actually separate. So you have a lot of the male flower parts in the center, not really what we're after, but on the outside there you can see those larger seeds that are almost like sunflower seeds minus the big heavy shell. That's what we're after. So Compass plant, a great native for Ohio. So this afternoon we are collecting a little bit of switchgrass. This is a fairly inexpensive seed, so we often just buy it, but it is relatively easy to collect too. It's a nice plant because it keeps its rigidity through the winter months, so it'll stand up in the snow and provide cover for wildlife. If we get in close, we can see Jules just kind of runs her hand up the stem, and it collects a lot of these kind of small circular seeds. And that is switchgrass, a native prairie grass. It is October 7th, pretty nice dry day, so we're gonna do a little bit of native seed collection. And here you can see Julia is collecting some rattlesnake master. You wanna show them the plant, Jules, and show them the leaves there down at the base. Kind of distinctive looking, and it'll have white flowers. And you can see now that the seed heads are starting to turn brown, which is a good indication that it's ripe. But she's having to work a little bit there to get it to crumble off the tip. That should come off more easily when it's really good and ripe. So I think we'll hold off on collecting too much of that today, and we'll give that another week or so. Again, it's the first week of October, so some of that stuff hasn't quite ripened up yet. But it looks like there's some Joe Pye weed right behind you there, Jules, if you want to show them how we collect that seed. Looking nice and brown and fluffy on top. Yeah. So often you can kind of just turn the heads upside down and bang them around in a 5-gallon bucket or a bag. They float around, kind of like dandelion seeds. But when they're ripe, they should fall off pretty easily, especially on a dry day. Get close up with that seed. Yep, blowing away right in front of us. So Joe Pye weed, yep, and that likes it nice and moist. So we're out in one of many restored wetland areas in Medina County Park District. We're gonna collect some foxglove seed today here. This is a nice native wildflower. This one blooms pretty early, gets tubular white flowers. And the seed heads on this are actually kind of hard and almost woody. But if you crack them open, you see they're gonna be full of seed. What we will typically do is actually just kind of collect a bunch of the, if I'm strong enough, a bunch of the seed heads and we will put them in a bucket and just kind of take them back to the shop like this. And then if we take like basically mortar and pestle style and just kind of gently crush these and open them, then we can release those seeds and broadcast those later when we go to restore an area. So box gloves, beard time. Today we're collecting some Indian grass, which is one of the native tallgrass prairie species. And you can see Jules there. When it's ripe, she can just run her hand down it and it comes off. Feels actually quite silky. It's sort of satisfying to collect the seed. And this is one that you can get quite a bit of seed in pretty rapid succession. One of the nice things too about these prairie grasses, Indian grass, big blue stem, switchgrass, they don't need the cold stratification that a lot of our native wildflowers need. So you could broadcast this in the winter, kind of frost seeding like we typically do, but you could also get out and you could broadcast these grass seeds early in the spring, and they'll still germinate without having that cold stratification that a lot of the wildflowers need. So Indian grass. We're going to collect some monkey flower today. This is a plant that likes it in wetter spots. This is probably square stem monkey flower. There's also sharp winged monkey flower. Grab my bucket here. See, it's turned brown, so it's a good indication that it is ripe. The seed is actually inside each of these seed heads. If you can get in there with the camera, Jules, you'll see it's very fine, dust-like sized seed. So each one of these seed heads is going to be loaded with, I don't know how many are there, hundreds probably. So you don't really have to get a ton of this, and a little bit's going to go a long way. Oftentimes we will just collect the whole seed head, and then we can crush those back in the shop later after they've dried, even maybe a little bit more, or on a rainy day when we don't have too many other pressing things to work on. So this is square stem monkey flower, nice native wildflower species. So it is the first week of October and we are collecting some native seeds. This afternoon we're getting some seed from narrowleaf mountain mint. This is one of the best plants for pollinators as it blooms for a really long time and attracts a lot of different native bee species. One thing we've noticed about this, you can see the heads there of the flowers. Some are still white while others are dark grayish brown. Those grayish brown ones are those are going to have ripe seeds in them that as Jules turns those upside down and bangs them in a bucket, they typically rattle out. The seed is actually really fine and black, but yeah, those white ones aren't quite ripe yet, so those are not going to fall out. It seems like a species that doesn't ripen all at one time, so it can be difficult to get. But the seeds being really small, a little bit goes a long way. So you can see in the bottom of my bucket here where I've been collecting some. All those little black specks are seeds for narrowleaf mountain mint. So we will keep at it. It's a slow process. I think it's a good time to mention that this is the way we've found to be successful for collecting the seed. It doesn't mean that it's the only way. If you find other ways that work well for you, by all means, go for it. We'd love to hear about how you do that as well. How much you got in there, Jules? Yeah, so a lot of leaves and stuff will get in there too, and some insects along the way. You can kind of carefully filter that out if you want, or you could broadcast it all together. It doesn't really matter. I'm gonna just combine mine to yours there without spilling it. Yeah, so that's maybe 10-15 minutes of collection. If you move that out of the side, you can kind of see all the fine dark brown, black seeds in there. So it may not seem like much, but that's, you know, thousands of seeds without a doubt. Again, because this doesn't all bloom at the same time, it has such a long blooming season, I think things ripen at different times. So whereas some seeds you can collect everything all at once, this one I think ripens throughout the season and kind of falls out on a windy or stormy day. So it's a little more difficult to get lots of seed in a short amount of time. We're going to collect some seed from common milkweed today. Best time to actually collect the milkweed seed is when they just start to turn a little bit yellow, but they're still closed up on the plant. And to know whether it's the right time, what we'll do is pick these off and get that milky latex on there. So often we'll pick these and we'll actually let them dry for a day or so, because this is really sticky and makes a mess. But for the purposes of this quick video clip, I'm going to show you. Pop it open. You can see inside the pod, the seeds are already turned to brown. Now, if these were white, I wouldn't want to collect the seed. That's too early. But because they're brown, I'm going to go ahead and collect it. And you can pull this out. And rather than having them dry and fluff and go everywhere, which makes a huge mess, if you keep it tight like this, and then you bring it and put it over a bucket or a bag, you can pretty easily just shuck the seed off like that without getting all that fluff. Now, if I tease it too much, I start to get into all this, and then you got the gummy latex on your fingers too, and you end up with a huge mess. But if you just do it like I just showed you there, you get just the seed. It makes it so much easier when you go to broadcast that seed in the fall or in the winter. That's common milkweed. Same is true for swamp milkweed, butterfly milkweed, or really any of the milkweed species. Julia is collecting seed now from common boneset, which we collect much the same way we collect Joe Pye weed. Once it's dry and those seeds get fluffy, kind of like dandelion fluff, you can just kind of bang them in a bucket or a bag, and they generally just fall to the bottom. So you can see they're a little bit smaller than the Joe Pye weed, but there's a lot of seed there. Collecting some gray-headed coneflower today. We've got these succulent leaves on it, and it's dropped all the flower petals weeks ago, months ago even at this point. And when it's ready and it's ripe, you can just kind of give the seed head a little twist, and it'll just fall apart into your hand. If you try to get this too early, it's going to be really hard to get the seed to fall off. So that's a good indication just to give it more time. But once it's ready, you can come out and you can pretty efficiently collect quite a bit of this gray-headed coneflower. It is October 12th. We're collecting some blue vervain this afternoon in front of our Park District headquarters. Often the vervain is ripe earlier than this, but we've been kind of keeping an eye on it. When the head starts to turn completely brown, it's a good indication that it's ripe, and then the seed will easily fall out of the stems. We have these handy planter bags / seed bags that we use. Lets you use kind of two hands, which makes it a little easier. You can see how Travis is doing this. He just turns the head upside down and then kind of rubs it between both of his hands, and the seed just falls right out. Look at that. That's brown gold right there. So blue vervain. Blue vervain's a nice one because it tends to show up in that first year of a meadow planting when other species haven't quite shown up, and it may even flower pretty profusely in that first year.